G'day everyone, welcome to a very cold and wet life on the hulls. We're in the middle of winter here and we've got yet another rain front coming through with 500 mils of rain. We're talking about half a metre over the next 3 days. So I'm out of here. I'm going north. I'm going to go to Queensland. I'm going to be away for a few weeks and we're basically going to be sailing a Seawind 1250 that we booked last year. Now, because of COVID, and it was our daughter Ellen's 21st, and it's Janet and my 30th wedding anniversary. So we're pretty excited to get away and celebrate that and basically have a bit of a break from this thing, because this is doing our head in every day. Now, looking behind, you might see a big hole in the wall. That's our high drive helm pump. And I'm pretty excited to get that hole drilled, and that's actually establishing my helm station. I've been doing a lot of work up there with the helm station. As you can see, there's a massive hole in the roof, and that roof is going to be basically a recessed dashboard for our 12-inch chart plotter we're putting in there, and all of our wind instruments and the like, and obviously our throttle. And also I've been working on a bit of an area for our sail winches, so pretty exciting. So I'm out of here. I've spent the last 3 or 4 hours cleaning up here. There's no tools. I'll leave nothing here while I go away. Basically, even though the boys are here opposite, obviously we don't want to leave anything of value in the boat while we're away for some time. Now, the videos are going to keep rolling. I'm going to keep putting out the videos as I go. I've got 3 months of content. I'm actually behind 3 months on the videos. So great thing is I can keep pumping out the videos while I'm away. So I'm not all on holidays. I'm doing a bit of work while I'm away. Let's get into it. I have been in discussions with a couple of propeller manufacturers with regard to what I'm going to do for the stern of our boat. And obviously when you're going through this discussions, you're discussing fixed propellers, folding propellers, variable pitch propellers and the like, and ultimately we've decided to have a variable pitch folding propeller, and we've ordered 2 of these from Brunton Propellers. They're going to be around 18 to 20 inches in physical diameter, and then there's the folded distance that we need to consider as well. As that propeller actually closes down, you need to make sure that there's enough clearance between it and the rudder. Now, I'm in a very fortunate position because I have not installed nor have I made my rudders yet, so that's fairly advantageous in this situation. I'm able to also almost custom make the propeller cavity to suit the boat with the rudders at the end. So what I'm doing here is I'm just going to make a template, and I've got this diagram here from Brunton showing the size. It's a 20-inch rudder, and then it has a 40 centimeter folded size as well. So I've got to consider the diameter to make sure that there's plenty of clearance between the propeller and the boat, and also I need to make sure there's plenty of clearance between the rudder and the propeller. And then I also need to work out whether or not it's possible to off-center my rudder slightly, only an inch or so, just to give me that ability to slide that shaft out should I need to, without actually having to physically remove my rudder. I don't think that's a big deal, but certainly it will be interesting to find out everyone's advice on that, and anyone's got any ideas on it, please let me know in the comments below or contact me through Facebook. But for now, I've got my compass. I've set it at, it's a 45 centimeter propeller. I'm going to cut that out, and then I'll take it down to the boat and we'll do some rudimentary fitting. You get the center here, and each blade, it's a 3-bladed prop. Alright, this is the area that I'm dealing with here with the propeller. You can see here where that 44-gallon drum is. That's sort of indicative of the fairing that I intend to put on the rear of this boat. This was actually off the mould off the last boat that was made. They actually made a mould off the fairing, so I've got a pretty good idea how this is going to look. Now, my shaft will actually enter a little bit higher than this one because it was at 7 degrees and not 8 degrees, so it's about 10 mils higher than that. So I've got to make sure I've got plenty of clearance here for the propeller. So I'm going to have to move this drum and start to work out where my propeller is going to sit based on the drawings that I have. Alright, so I've come up with this. This is going to be a 30mm shaft, 30mm shaft, fitting onto, I guess, a 20-inch prop, but may be 18-inch at this stage. The fairing here has been taken off the original drawings, which I have down here, and I'll just pop that up on the screen. I've calculated that and pretty much just made a rough template here that's going to give me the sizes for my foam fairing. And then I have to allow around about 100mm here, another 100mm or 100mm in between the end of the fairing, and this will actually come out like a trumpet here, which will basically be the end of the shaft tube. And then we'll have 100mm of gap, and then our propeller. So I've allowed for 350mm from the end of the fairing to the end of the shaft, and I'll check with Brunton to make sure that that's appropriate. It's not really going to matter to it's not really going to affect my fairing, as I just need to make sure that I have at least a 700mm long shaft tube from here to the inside of the deadwood, which is around about here. There's another compartment in here which is actually my essentially my deadwood area here in the back of the boat, or dead glass I'm going to call it. But yeah, that's pretty accurate, I would say, and given that, I don't really think having a 20-inch propeller is going to be too much of an issue if that's sitting around about here. You can see there I've got about 15 centimeters between the top of the boat, or between the boat and that, and if it's back here, you know, I'm still in the clear. Looking as a 20-inch prop may well be the business. I don't want to go too big because that's just extra weight that the boat's got to propel. But by the same token, you know, the bigger it is, the more power we're going to have. Essentially, I've got it positioned exactly where I want it. Now that is an 18-inch prop. There, I do have room for a 20-inch, but I'm going to go on the advice from Brunton's. Essentially, that is the unfolded position of the prop. Now, the other thing I need to consider is its folded position, and that is somewhere in the vicinity of this. So that is now taking that prop right out 390mm to essentially out to here, and then I've got to allow room for the rudder behind it, which is going to be way past where that drum is there. So yeah, lots to think about here. But that cardboard here will obviously be H80 foam and then wrapped in glass, and it's then going to be tied back into the back of the boat. So there's a lot to do here, but I've now got that template. I can actually make 2 lots of that out of foam and get that all made up and get it ready while I'm waiting on all of this stuff to arrive. So yeah, very, very good. It's going to need a it's around about a 50mm composite tube with a cutlass bearing in the stern here, and obviously through to the deadwood, and then onto a shaft seal or a PSS seal on the inside in the engine room. But yeah, that's awesome. We are going to glue the hardtop down today to the top of the deck. Now that's going to involve a couple of things. Firstly, I've got a number of bolts, about 6 bolts holding it in place in exactly the right position. That's pretty much where I need it to sit. And it's given me around about a 5mm gap all the way around on the inside where it's joining the inside of the deck. I'll show you that in a moment. But what I need to do is basically mask it so that I don't have epoxy oozing onto my nice white gel coat on the actual deck itself. And then I'm going to backfill it from underneath. So I'll be filling from the inside first, and then I'll come out and I'll squeeze it in here to make sure I get plenty in the bottom here, plenty in behind it. And then what I'll do is I'll come in from the inside here, and you can see here I can just fit my fingers over here. Now the idea is that I'm going to fill this with epoxy, and then this will be filleted and then ultimately tabbed to the roof to make it all one structure. And that's going to take a little bit of work. It's going to be a lot of overhead tabbing, but it's not going to be that difficult because at least it's easy to get to. There's no little cramped corridors or little compartments I need to get into. So all of this area here is going to be backfilled with a lot of epoxy, and that's going to be the basis of the gluing onto the deck, and then ultimately it will be joined from the inside as well as from the outside on the flange, and that'll be then fed back into the deck itself. Now the second part of that will be there'll be a glue line all the way along the top of this foam here. Now this foam is 30mm foam with 2 layers of glass and another 30mm foam joined together. So it's actually got a vertical structure to it as well as a sandwich structure once we get to finish this tying in. And very importantly, I've got this ugly edge here that needs to be dealt with. So once this is glued to this, I'm going to round this off and taper this and make it all nice and fair, and just so it has like a nice little rebate at the top, a bit like a cornice in a house. And that's a really important element here. And I'm actually joining the deck and the roof together and then tying it all in on both sides. So along here, this will have a nice dress face here, which will tie into the remainder of the cockpit roof. So yeah, plenty to do here, but we're going to jack it up around about 1 inch, just so I've got a bit of working room. And then we're just going to pump glue into it, pump all that epoxy into it, and make sure that we get it all sealing and glued, and then I can come back in a couple of days once that's set up and start to deal with the actual join, which is going to basically complete the interface inside. Alright, it's all masked up. I've got 6 bolts holding it in place. We're going to loosen them. Don't loosen that one too much. Now, we're going to loosen these bolts, and that'll provide a gap for us to pump the epoxy in, and hopefully I'll be able to lift it a little bit even with those bolts in place. I'm not sure how much I'm going to get, but I really only need to ooze it in from this side. Most of the filling is going to be done from the inside. So I'll put this block of wood here. What that's going to do is actually going to stop the whole hardtop moving forward, because it's actually on a downward slope to make it look really speedy as it lifts towards the back of the boat. Hasn't really lifted it much at all. Hasn't lifted it at all. Oh yes, it has. It has around the front here. Get down in your place, Janet.
I said, just be careful.
I'm always careful. I know the line I need to tread. I just know.
Why do you tread it?
I love to tread it because it creates fun. It's a bit of angst. Okay, we're about to glue it. Janet's mixing up a couple of big piping bags full, a couple of those big 400mm bags, and that should be enough. 2 should be plenty to do this job. Now I just want to highlight the headroom I've got. I'm 6'3", almost 6'3", and I've still got 4 inches of head height with this here. Now I've got to drop it down about 1 inch, so I end up with about 6'5" of head height here. Now there is an issue when I get to here. I do have to dark a bit, but that's sort of heading into the saloon dinette module. But I know a few of you have commented about my headroom in here. It is an older style boat and has a very sleek look as it goes down towards the front window. So unlike a lot of the production boats where they're now more a tugboat sort of look, that squarer cabin, ours is that sloped cabin. So we do lose headroom as we head forward. But for now, I'm really happy with what we've got here, and having this cutout has made a massive difference to the internal space as we enter the saloon. Come on, honey, we're running out of time. Mix it up.
Well, you know what? If you didn't keep telling me what to do, it would have been done by now.
Comments from the super coach down there. Don't mess with Janet when she's mixing epoxy. That's what I've learnt. I'll just learn to behave, I think.
Hey, don't do
Like all good men, we learn to behave.
Don't do that.
Right, bag number 2. That's that stage 1 done. Oh, that's good. Drop these down a little bit. Start to see that close. Yeah. So it becomes a bit loose. Just leave a little bit of tension on that.
That's where the apricot's coming down. Oh, there's tons coming out now, Dan. You might want to stop it dripping.
I'll run my finger on it later. Shit, that's a lot.
Yeah, that's what I said. Do you want a container or something to put it in?
I think so.
Hang up.
Clean up any over.
What about?
Don't want to land on the gel coat out here. I don't mind if it falls inwards into the boat.
Yeah.
It's not quite down here yet. Won't be down until I tighten that.
Yeah.
So far we've actually filled in behind here where these bolts are. I'm just going to pipe a little bit into the front to make sure that we're joining the bottom and the top together all the way around, and then we'll lock it down and the job will be done. Well, there it is, folks. It's in place. I'm going to leave it to sit overnight. It's already pretty much set. This is just a backfill I've just done here because this side over here has a slightly bigger gap. Now, I'd attribute that 5mm gap over this side to possibly the fact that I cut the mould in half, or possibly it never did fit properly. You know, a lot of these things aren't ever a perfect fit, but for now, what I've got here is pretty much a fully backfilled rebate here that I can now start. I have to then grind this back to get it level with the roof, and then what I'm going to do ultimately is start to fair and tab the whole thing down, and this will have multiple layers down to about here. I'm not going to go any further because I don't want to affect the fair of this section here. If I go past about here, I've then got to start fairing the roof, and I intend to have a paint job on this roof and not lining on this particular section here because it's already low enough. But yeah, that's looking pretty good. I've got it filled over here. This section here, this part of the foam, which was the old roof, is actually going to get cut off back to the glass. It's all in. The only thing I really need to start think about is how I'm going to support this, because Robin Zametti in England actually pointed out that this is a massive sail and would be likely to get torn off in a big storm, and I've got a lot of other integration to do here before this thing's even ready to see the water. So stainless posts, and I got some davits the other day. I'll tell you about that a little bit later on. Easter Sunday, honey. Do you know what I was doing last Easter Sunday?
What?
Laying up the deck.
Oh, wow.
I was like 5 days into it, so that's not very exciting, is it? What are we doing today? More of the same.
No, it's not. Let's get positive here.
Yeah, let's get positive. Righto, so we've prepped the stern here for our sugar scoop extensions. And what that's going to involve is Janet's been busily working away up in the factory, polishing them up. As polished as we can get them, because they're not real flash molds, but they're going to be enough to extend this as we need it. And what I've done is I've basically finished back, or sanded back, a bit of a margin here, because when the mold fits on here, I'm going to glass the inside face, and then once I tear the mold off, I'll be able to glass the outside face back to here. I may have to extend this out a little bit yet, but we'll see how we go. But I've also grounded back about 8 inches into the boat, all the way inside, so that that first 2 or 3 layers, or all the layers in fact, are going to engage into the existing boat, and then the outside will just be a couple of structural ones just to hold it in place so that we can get a nice fair finish. But that's the plan. We're going to go and get them, and we're going to screw them in place, so that's going to create a little bit of a nice flat finish here, so we don't end up with a big hump here. That's what I'm aiming for. Here are our sugar scoop molds, and they're our extensions. This will take the boat out to 12.7 metres, and we think that's pretty much an ideal length, and Janet's given these a really good polish. This top area here is going to get grinded off because I don't really need that on there. That's going to engage into the sugar scoop steps, and then this is the inboard side here. So basically joining those together with a bottom plate is going to form the basis of our extension. So let's get them down there, Jan. Gave you the hard bit. Sorry, Dom. That's it. Just you across. So I put this masking tape on here to stop the resin from falling behind the mould. It won't stop at all, but it'll certainly help a little bit. Then when we take the mould off, we go remove the masking tape and then go to just glass straight into it. It's going to get right out. Hang on, it's going to come back. So go down, let it down, let it down, let it down. Yeah, right down. Right in the right place. Mating with the boat. They should be coming through, are they? Yeah. Yeah, look at that. See, look how perfect that's joining to the boat there. And on the other side, through here. So I've got to grind off this excess piece of moulding. This was taken off the boat and peeled off. Obviously they had other intentions. Now I'm going to have to put in probably a 20mm curved foam lip all the way down the top here, but I won't know what that's going to look like until I get my sugar scoop steps in here, and they're going to basically come in here somewhere, so down low, so I can almost do whatever I like with the top here to make it look good. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to trim it right on the edge to make sure that I've got the full size of this extension so that I can tie that into the rest of the boat, and then I'll work on this later on. This is going to be a little bit of make do at the back here. I'm not really sure how I'm going to do this. This will come to me as I get the work done, but and a lot of that does happen. Most of this job is basically coming to you as you get it done, and hopefully your design is going to look good at the end. I'm aiming for consistency on both sides. How that's going to look, it really is extending the shape of the back. It's modernising the stern. It's not so much like a super flash speedy sort of a look, but it does actually look a lot nicer as a more extended sugar scoop. But anyway, I'll get it in and grind it and get rid of it so that I can just concentrate on this face, which is the only part that's interesting to me. I've just glued a clamp across the back just to join the two sides, just to hold it nice and solid. I'm just a bit concerned that it's going to flop while I start to laminate it. I certainly don't want that if there's gel coat on there. You can see the margin between the boat and the mould is about, it's about 3 or 4 millimeters there, but on the other side, it's virtually not even there. Although you can see a slight gap, it's actually not much of a gap because that's the outside of the hull, which has been tapered back. So same thing over here, it really hasn't been tapered back correctly. And what I'll do is I'll just fill that with plasticine and clean that up on the other side once I rip the mould off. But yeah, that's looking pretty good. That's pretty much the final shape of the boat, and that's going to just be amazing, these extensions. You can see the extension here. It's going to extend right down. So that's just going to be sprayed with white gel coat, that part there, right to about the first chine, and then I won't bother below that because that's going to get sanded off anyway and anti-foul pretty much up to around about this level here. That's around the water line, is probably about this height. That'll be about the boot stripe there, and a little bit of white on the top. So all of that I can do later on. It's going to be a lot of joining and a lot of taping and a lot of filleting and tabbing, joining the steps onto this. But yeah, that's going to look just brilliant.